We will teach you now how to complete the Human Participants Form number 4. This form must be completed for any research involving human participants that's not done at a regulated research institution, such as a university. If it is done at a university or other regulated research institution, you are required to use those institutional approval forms for documentation. The IRB is a review board that is from your school, and they must receive all of your paperwork and may ask you questions about your project prior to signing this form. The only sections the students are allowed to complete is this top box. First, enter the student name or names, the title of their project, the name of the adult sponsor, and the adult sponsor's phone number and/or email. The student researchers must work with their adult sponsor and with the IRB and make sure that they submit all of their research plan or project summaries with their forms. This is so that the IRB is allowed to review everything and make a logical decision. If there's any surveys or questionnaires that you are including in your experiment, you must include them here. For this experiment, Miley Cyrus, Alicia Keys, and Adam Levine are asking people if they drink coffee and then sing, if they feel like they sing better, or after drinking tea. You must include any informed consent form that will be used to make sure that people can participate in your experiment. And you must answer the question if you're working with a qualified scientist or not. And for this experiment, the students are working with Ozzy Osbourne as their qualified scientist. Once all of these forms have been turned into the IRB now will review your research project, your human informed consent, and any other requirements that they have. It is then the committee will make their decision whether they approve this or not. Expedited reviews are only for studies where human participants will provide feedback on a project design, and there is no health or safety hazards. Since this is not a project design, this cannot be an expedited review. The only other reason you can have an expedited review is if the student is the only subject in the research and there's no more than minimal risk is involved. This research is actually being done by multiple people to see if drinking coffee or tea improves singing. So this cannot be an expedited review. Once the committee reviews everything, they must answer questions 1 through 6. They cannot leave any of them blank. So if it is approved, they first need to select that they have approved with the full committee. They need to determine the risk level. Drinking hot water or hot tea or hot coffee is a minimal risk, but that is only for the IRB committee to make that decision. If you're working with a qualified scientist, whether you are or not, they may determine if you need to have a qualified scientist and if you need a designated supervisor. When working with minors, they need to determine if there's required minor assent. And since we will be having minors in this experiment, that is a requirement, and parents must give permission for the minors to participate. And finally, you need to determine if informed consent is required for participants that are not minors, 18 years or older. And in general rule of thumb, most people will ask for a written informed consent. Once all questions are answered, then the IRB must sign and date everything in this box here. It is very important to note that these are the only experts that are allowed to sign this form. So the first one is a medical or mental health professional, such as a psychologist, a medical doctor, a licensed social worker, a licensed clinical professional counselor, a physician assistant, or a registered nurse. So they would actually print their name here, enter their professional degree or license here, and then the date of approval, which must be prior to experimentation. It is very important to realize that every single date must be prior to experimentation. The next section is for the educator which cannot be the same adult sponsor. So if your science teacher is sponsoring you as the adult sponsor, they cannot be the ones signing on this form. And finally, the last section is for a school administrator, who is usually going to be a principal or vice principal of your school. You need to make sure that they do print their name, they do put their degree in each of the sections, whichever section is appropriate, and the date. Once those are completed, you need to save this form, print it out, and have each person from the IRB sign this form. If you do have Form 4, you may remember that in Form 1B, you have a location for an SRC or an IRB to also sign that form. So please remember to bring your Form 1B and have the appropriate signature placed in either Section 2A or 2B.